If I didn't write, well, if I didn't write books, I'd be wanting to write something because writing is the sort of one thing that I feel like I'm good at doing. So I'd be wanting to write journalism or things like that. But if I couldn't write at all, I would. Well, I'm from a family of teachers, so I'd probably be a teacher. I'll say, I guess. There is no average really, but with the children's books, they tend to take about 3 months to actually write and then another sort of 2 months in the editing, so it's about half a year for the children's books. But sometimes books take a year, and sometimes when I wrote a book called Reasons to Stay Alive, it was like a month or so, so it really varies. I believe in, not in writer's block, but I believe in writer's indecision, where you just have too many choices and you don't know which one to do. Because I'm a demon for having different Word documents open at the same time and then flicking between them and not knowing which one to do. The most difficult part of my artistic process is editing. I'm really not very good at editing. That's when it starts to feel like work. I actually enjoy the first draft and writing the first thing, but when you get the edits back, as my wife Andrea would tell you, it becomes a little bit stressful. Right, my first book. Well, actually, my career has been quite. It was quite slow to build up. So, when I had my first book, I still had to have the day job. I couldn't sort of live off the writing, and my first 3 books actually, it was quite a disheartening experience, and there was lots of frustrations and stuff. I think the great thing for me that changed the way I write and the way I market my books and everything was the internet really taking off and social media taking off changed the whole author-reader relationship. So that was the big point for me in about 2008, 2009. I like a novel called Vox by Nicholson Baker, which is just one long phone conversation, which not a lot of people have heard of these days. I think Jeff Dyer's a great author. Children's books, all kinds of things. Mind you, my favourite children's author is Roald Dahl, so that's hardly underappreciated. But yeah, I'm trying to think. But yes, I'll say Nicholson Baker is my favourite sort of underappreciated author. My favourite childhood book is probably something by Roald Dahl. I liked The Witches, I liked Danny the Champion of the World. When I was a little bit older, there was a book called The Outsiders, which I liked a lot, by S.E. Hinton, which is very, very well known in America. It's a little less known here, but it was one of my sort of favourite books when I was about 12, which meant a lot to me. Well, coming up with the name of Father Christmas was quite easy because it was just Nicholas. And other than that, it's actually quite hard. It's the hardest thing, is coming up with the right names and the right feel of names and not using the same name twice. You realise there's not enough names in the world. But I've just been writing a very, very long book that's set over different time periods. So it was a case of going on sort of like the top 10 most popular Elizabethan names on the internet. The internet's so useful now for things like this, and just picking the one that sounded best. It's always, weirdly for me, the hardest type of character I find to write is someone exactly like me. So the hardest character for me to write would be like a 41-year-old writer. That'd be the hardest. Have to remember, my first ever novel was narrated by a Labrador. I've written books narrated by an alien. I've written books about vampires. I've written about Father Christmas. So writing about an 11-year-old girl was relatively okay. Aspiring writer would be to do it because you enjoy writing. Like still, even when you're a paid writer and you do it as a job, the best thing about writing is writing. So if that's the reason you do it, then carry on doing it. To have it as a job, you also have to have it as a hobby at the same time. You have to enjoy what you're doing, because if you're not enjoying writing, people won't enjoy reading the writing.